As last Tuesday's election presented an interesting set of data points, a rightward shift across the country. Trump improving some 10 points from 2020 in Democratic strongholds like New Jersey, New York, and here in California.
With more, we're joined once again by Jessica Millan-Patterson, chair of the California Republican Party. Jessica, thanks for being with us. So in 2020, Joe Biden won California by 30 points. Harris now winning the state by 20. This, as we also saw Prop 36 pass statewide by nearly 70%, and progressives like George Gascon and San Francisco Mayor London Breed ousted. What do you make of the shift, and to what do you attribute it?
Well, I think a huge part of this shift that we're seeing has been failed Democrat policies. Prop 36 was on the ballot because we had to clean up the mess of these pro-criminal policies that have been championed by one-party rule here in California. Prop 36 finished in the majority in every single county in our state. Very clearly, Californians are sending a message that what we have been doing is not right. You said it, over 70% of our counties had a shift to the right for President Trump over 2020's election results. We saw those shifts happening in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. He flipped full counties. This is great news for Republicans, as we've seen that shift in registration already taking place over the last 5 years.
Well, despite those shifts, there are still a number of close House races here in California, and 2 seats in particular must have been disappointing to lose. George Whitesides defeating Mike Garcia and Dave Min defeating Scott Baugh. So how do you square the rightward shift and those losses? And how do you keep momentum going into 2026 when Trump is not on the ballot?
Certainly, Mike Garcia was a huge loss for us. He was a wonderful member of Congress. He was actually my member of Congress for a couple of years. And the open Katie Porter seat was always going to be a difficult seat for us. And we've seen that with all of these seats. We still have a few seats that are left to be called. And that's something that's very typical here in California. You have to remember that in every single one of these seats that we're playing in on the congressional side, the Democrats have an advantage on the registration. In some cases, as much as 14 and a half points, like Congressman David Valadao's seat, which he just was called yesterday, and he was the majority maker. But once again, California is seen as the majority maker, with Ken Calvert's seat and Young Kim's called and Congressman David Valadao's yesterday. So we know our important role. We know that these races are always going to be close, and that's why not only are GOTV efforts important, but also the ballot curing process. Some of these races will be decided by just a few hundred votes, as we saw with Congressman John Duarte in 22, when his race wasn't called until December, and it was about 565 votes that separated these candidates. We know what our role is. We know that these are always going to be tough seats, and that's why we're out here doing the work.
Jessica, let's talk about President-elect Trump. Governor Newsom has already started to, quote, Trump-proof the state, as we've been reporting. He was at the White House yesterday meeting with members of the Biden administration and with the president himself. What do you think the Trump presidency will mean for the Golden State?
Well, I think with this shift in the electorate that we've seen here in California over the last several years, I think that Democrats would be wise to listen to what their constituents are saying. Governor Newsom, I can't believe how tone deaf he is with this special session that he's calling. When we just watched Prop 36, which he was adamantly opposed to, just finish across the finish line with overwhelming majorities of not just Republicans and independents, but Democrats as well. I think it would be really smart if Gavin Newsom and the rest of the Democrat Party here in California look for ways that they can work with President Trump and the Republican House majority and Senate majority. That would be beneficial to all Californians.
All right, it's only been a week. The dust has barely settled on 2024. I know, and we're already talking about 26 and 28. So let's show this. There's new polling that says Vice President Harris could put up a formidable fight for governor here. Meanwhile, Newsom appears to be laying the groundwork for a White House run. What do you see as their futures?
Come on, Shara. He's been running for the presidency for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
He's not laying groundwork. The groundwork has been laid. There was no one that was celebrating more than Gavin Newsom last Tuesday so that he could run for president in 28. I think for Vice President Harris, I think being the governor would probably be a step down. I think she's probably looking for a way to still stay relevant. And I'm interested to see what that ends up being. But I know what Republicans are going to do. We're going to continue to do the work to make California a more livable state. And we're going to continue to bring our message to Californians all over our state. And we're going to talk about the affordability crisis, the homeless crisis, our education system that's failing our children, the public safety crisis. And we're going to show those options that California voters have that really Democrats have failed them on every single one of those issues.
Quickly, does the Matt Gaetz nomination get through the Senate?
That's a good question. That's why there's this process. And we do have that Senate confirmation. It's a check on that executive branch. And there's a long process that goes for all of these nominees. What I can say is that President Trump was elected because of his vision for this country. And so we're going to see how this all goes through the Senate. And I'm looking forward to that as well.
Jessica Milan Patterson, always a pleasure. Chair of the California Republican Party. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Still ahead on the news at 7, a look at your forecast.
We'll be right back.